My daughter abandoned me on Christmas Day, running off with her husband and his parents on a trip that I paid $17,000 for. I expected the warmth of family, but I found an empty house and a treacherous note. It turns out they had planned it all. They had a conversation without me, where they mocked my walking ATM, so I canceled everything. They called me 76 times, but they had no idea this was just the beginning. Before we continue, please subscribe to William's Revenge Stories and let us know where you're listening from in the comments. I expected the smell of bacon, but instead I found silence. On the kitchen table was a single sheet of paper, folded once, placed exactly where my coffee mug usually sat. My name was written on it in Sarah's careful handwriting. Nothing else disturbed the morning quiet. No laughter from the living room. No sounds of wrapping paper being torn. No excited voices talking about our upcoming vacation in the mountains. My hands trembled as I unfolded the note. Dad, we decided to go to the mountains without you. The family needs this time together. Just us. We'll be back on January 2nd. Don't worry about the money. We know you can afford it. Thanks for everything. Love, Sarah. The paper slipped from my fingers. They were gone. On Christmas morning, after I had spent $17,000 planning the perfect family vacation, after months of excited planning sessions where Sarah would hug me and call me the best dad in the world. Still, I walked through the house calling their names. Sarah, Matt, Richard, Linda. My voice echoed off the empty walls. Their bedroom doors were open, revealing hastily made beds. In Sarah's closet, the space where her large suitcase used to be was empty. Matt's shaving kit was gone from the bathroom counter, back in the kitchen. I picked up my phone with shaky fingers. Sarah's number went straight to voicemail. Her cheerful recorded voice now felt like a taunt. Sarah, it's Dad. I found your note. I don't understand what's happening. Please call me. Matt's phone rang once before going to voicemail. Then Richard's. Then Linda's. Each unanswered call sank the truth deeper into my chest. This wasn't impulsive. They had planned this, all of them, together. I sank into my leather armchair, surrounded by wrapped gifts I had bought for people who had abandoned me. The Christmas tree lights blinked steadily, illuminating gift tags written in my own careful hand. To Sarah, with love from Dad. To Matt, hoping this year brings you everything you wish for. 3 months ago, I had announced the vacation during Sunday dinner. Sarah had been going through a rough time since her divorce, and Matt's parents had never taken a real vacation. I wanted to give them something special. The mountains for New Year's, I had said, pulling out the resort brochures. 7 days, all expenses paid. Skiing, spa treatments, the whole package. Sarah had hugged me tight. Dad, you're amazing. This is exactly what we all need. Matt had shaken my hand firmly. Julian, this means everything to us. Truly. Richard and Linda had even cried. We never dreamed we'd see a place like this, Richard had whispered. I felt so proud, so useful. Finally, I could create the kind of family memories that would last forever. Now, I understood their tears differently. They were already planning to exclude me back then, weighing how much my generosity could buy them against how much they could tolerate my presence. I picked up our family photo from last Christmas. 5 smiling faces, Sarah's arm around my shoulders, Matt giving me a thumbs up, Richard and Linda beaming with genuine warmth. Or what I had thought was genuine. Had they discussed it after I went to bed? Had they counted the days until they could take my money and leave me behind? The keys to the Mercedes were on the kitchen counter where Sarah had left them. A final insult. They had taken an Uber to the airport instead of driving my car, making sure I knew it wasn't about transportation. It was about choosing not to include me. My phone buzzed with a text from my neighbor. Merry Christmas, Julian. Hope you're having a wonderful morning with your family. I stared at the message until the screen went dark. They had made their decision. They thought I was just a lonely old man with deep pockets and no backbone. Someone who would quietly absorb their betrayal and continue to fund their lives without consequences. They were wrong. I walked to my office and opened the desk drawer where I kept all our vacation documents, confirmation numbers, resort information. payment receipts, everything they would need for their perfect getaway, everything I still controlled. My finger hovered over the resort's phone number. Walking to my office felt like crossing a bridge I could never return from. The organized filing cabinet was exactly where I'd left it. 3 decades of meticulous record-keeping. Every receipt cataloged. Every contract filed alphabetically. I pulled out the thick folder labeled Mountain Vacation 2024. The luxury resort's number was highlighted in yellow marker. I had called them dozens of times during the planning, discussing room upgrades and special requests. Now I dialed with a different intention. Good morning, Luxury Resort. This is Rebecca speaking. How can I help you? This is Julian Herrera. My family checked in last night under the Herrera reservation. I need to make some immediate changes. Oh, yes, Mr. Herrera. Your family arrived safely. They seemed very excited for their stay. What changes would you like to make? I opened my planning folder to the detailed itinerary I had spent weeks crafting. I need to cancel the spa appointments scheduled for December 27th. All 5 of them. Sir, those are premium bookings during peak season. There will be significant cancellation fees. Cancel them. The keyboard clacking stopped. Of course, sir. Anything else? The private chef service for New Year's Eve. Cancel it. I drew a line through the $2,400 expense with my red pen. Mr. Herrera, that is a very popular service. Are you sure you don't want to reschedule? Cancel the ski lessons. All of them. Cancel the wine tasting tour. Cancel the private shopping appointment. Each cancellation felt like striking their names from my will. Deliberate and final. Rebecca's professional composure cracked slightly. Sir, this accounts for the majority of your planned activities. Is everything all right? Everything is perfect. One more thing. Remove my credit card authorization for any and all incidental charges. They can pay for their own extras now. I hung up before she could reply, and immediately opened the bottom drawer of my file cabinet. Inside were folders containing 7 years of receipts. Every dollar I had spent supporting Sarah and Matt. Organized by category and year, the college folder held $180,000 in tuition payments spread over 4 years. Sarah's psychology degree she had never used. I remembered her graduation day, tears streaming down her face as she hugged me, promising she would make me proud. Wedding expenses. $65,000 for what Sarah called her fairy tale day. The venue, the flowers, the photographer. I had signed every check with joy, watching my daughter's dreams come true. Apartment down payment, $85,000. I had structured it as a formal loan, not a gift. Smart business practice, even with family. The paperwork was in its manila folder, Matt's bold signature on the promissory note. My phone was already ringing before I finished reviewing the files. Julian? Merry Christmas, my friend. Robert Morgan's voice had that relaxed holiday tone. My lawyer for 23 years. The man who had handled the sale of my business and my retirement planning. Robert, I need legal advice. Today, his pause told me he'd noticed the tension in my voice. Julian, what's wrong? You sound different. My family left for the mountains without me on Christmas morning, after I paid $17,000 for their vacation. The words came out flat, businesslike. I want to know my legal options regarding money I've loaned them over the years. Wait, what? Sarah and Matt left you on Christmas? Are you serious? Completely serious. They took my money and abandoned me. Now I want to know what I can legally get back. Robert's silence dragged on long enough for me to wonder if the call had dropped. Finally, Julian, the loan documentation for the apartment we prepared is ironclad. It's a demand loan with a 30-day notice. The credit cards you pay for can be canceled immediately. But are you sure you want to do this? Cancel the cards, prepare the collection notice for the loan. I want everything ready by tomorrow morning. Julian, it's Christmas. Maybe we should be thinking about mediation. Family therapy. They made their decision, Robert. Now I'm making mine. After hanging up, I walked to my fireproof safe and pulled out the documents I had hoped I would never need. Every loan agreement, every co-signed lease, every financial guarantee I had provided out of love and trust. I had no idea what was legally possible when generosity turned into betrayal. My phone began to vibrate with an incoming call. Sarah's name flashed on the screen. I let it ring 3 times before answering. My voice rock steady. "Hello, Sarah." "Dad?" Her voice cracked with panic. "What did you do?" "They're saying all our reservations are canceled. The spa, the restaurants, everything." I canceled them. The silence stretched between us like a canyon. Then, "You can't do that. We're already here. We planned this whole trip around those reservations." "No, I planned this trip. You just decided to cut me out of it." "Dad, please let me explain." "Explain what? How you coordinated to leave me alone on Christmas morning? How you took my $17,000 and abandoned me?" My fingers drummed against the desk. "There's nothing to explain, Sarah." Her breathing grew fast, desperate. "We can talk about this when we get back. We can fix this." "Can we? How do we fix you telling me to?" "Dad, you're being irrational. I'm being practical. Robert Morgan is preparing the legal documents to call in your apartment loan. 30-day notice. As specified in the contract you and Matt both signed." The phone went silent, except for her sharp intake of breath. "You wouldn't." "I already have. Your credit cards will be canceled by noon today. Any bank guarantees I've signed are being revoked." I opened my safe and pulled out the thick stack of documents. "Did you really think I didn't keep records of my generosity?" "Dad, stop. Please." She was sobbing now. "We made a mistake. Okay? We should have talked to you first. You made a decision. Now live with the consequences." "What about Richard and Linda? They've never done anything to hurt you. They're innocent. They participated. They could have called me, warned me, refused to go. Instead, they chose a side." I thumbed through the loan documents, each page crisp with legal authority. "You all made your choice. This is insane. You can't just destroy our lives over one mistake." "A mistake?" The words came out colder than I intended. "Sarah, this wasn't an impulse. You planned this. You discussed it. You coordinated it. You booked transportation without telling me. This was a calculated betrayal." Matt's voice suddenly joined the call. "Julian, this is getting out of hand. Let's talk about this like adults." "Adults don't abandon family members on Christmas morning, Matt. Look, we just thought you might enjoy some time alone. You're always saying how busy your social calendar is. Don't," my voice cut through his attempt at manipulation, "don't you dare try to reframe this as you doing me a favor. You took my money and you left me behind because you didn't want me there. That's not. I have the receipts, Matt. Each item landed like a hammer blow. Every payment I've made for your life. The apartment down payment, the credit cards, the car loan I co-signed, the wedding expenses, your parents' medical bills I paid last year. Did you discuss that when you planned to cut me out?" Richard's trembling voice came over the phone now. "Julian, son, please. We never meant to hurt you. We just thought the kids knew what they were doing." "Richard, I'm not your son. Your son took my daughter and my money and left me alone on Christmas." Linda started wailing in the background. "This is exactly what we were trying to avoid," Sarah said through her tears. "Your emotional blackmail, your need to control everything with money." Something cold settled in my chest. "Control? I gave you independence, an education, a home, the ability to choose a career. Everything I did was to set you free, not to control you. But there were always strings attached. Weren't there? There were always strings. The only string was basic human decency. Apparently. That was too much to ask for." The hotel room went quiet, except for muffled sobs. "What do you want?" Matt finally asked. "Money? An apology? What will it take to fix this?" "Fix this." I looked at the family photos on my desk, seeing strangers now. "Matt, you can't fix betrayal. You can only live with it." "So that's it? You're just going to destroy everything because your feelings are hurt?" My hand tightened on the phone. My feelings weren't hurt. My trust was shattered. There's a difference. Through their crying and arguing, I heard another sound. Someone knocking on their hotel room door. After I hung up, I needed silence. The house felt different now. Bigger, emptier, like a museum of lost trust. I'd had a sandwich around noon, but barely tasted it. Now, walking through the rooms I had decorated for a Christmas morning that never came, I felt like a detective in my own life. Sarah's bedroom door was slightly open, just as she'd left it on Christmas Eve. I pushed it wider and stepped inside. Her childhood photos smiled from the walls. Gymnastics trophies, high school graduation, family vacations where we all looked genuinely happy. Had I imagined it all? The charging station on her nightstand caught my eye. Sarah's phone was lying there, forgotten in her rush to the airport. She had been texting frantically from Richard's phone during our call. I picked up the device, my thumb hovering over the screen. This felt like crossing a line. But they had already crossed every line that mattered. The phone unlocked with her birth date, a password I'd helped her choose years ago for security. The messaging app showed dozens of unread notifications. I opened the group chat labeled Girls Trip Planning and immediately wished I hadn't. 2 weeks ago. Sarah. Dad is insisting on coming with us to the mountains. Jessica. Ugh. That's heavy. Can't you just tell him no? Sarah. You don't know my dad. He paid for everything, so he thinks he's entitled to be there. Sophia. But maybe he'd have fun. Sarah. Trust me. He won't. Matt says the old man will just complain that everything is too expensive or too loud. My hands started to shake. Jessica. And his parents? They seemed sweet when I met them. Sarah. Richard and Linda are great. Actually, they'd be so much more relaxed without Dad, hovering with his opinions. Sophia. Plus, you guys could actually party. Sarah. Exactly. This is supposed to be our vacation, not a family reunion with my walking ATM. I sat down heavily on her bed, the phone trembling in my hand. 1 week ago. Sarah. Update. We figured out how to handle the dad situation. Jessica. Do tell. Sarah. We're just going to leave on Christmas morning before he wakes up. We'll leave a note. Sophia. That's kind of cruel. Sarah. He'll get over it. Besides, Richard said they felt bad about taking so much money from him anyway. Jessica. Wait, so your in-laws are in on this? Sarah. They needed some convincing, but Matt explained to them how Dad makes everything about him. The words blurred as I scrolled through more messages, each one feeling like a paper cut. Small, but adding up to something unbearable. Sarah. Sometimes I think Dad forgets we're adults. Sophia. At least he pays for everything. Sarah. True. The upside of having a rich, overprotective father. Jessica. Must be nice to have a dad who can afford to spoil you. Sarah. But it comes with strings. He expects gratitude and family time in return. Sophia. Emotional labor. I remembered the conversation from 2 weeks ago. Matt's suggestion hadn't been casual at all, Julian. Don't you think it would be nice if it was just the younger generation this time? He had said over Sunday dinner. Sarah had jumped in immediately. Dad, you'd probably be more comfortable at home anyway. You always say how much you love having quiet time to read. I had laughed it off, thinking they were joking, but I had been looking forward to this family time for months. The awkward silence that followed now made sense. They had already decided. Richard and Linda had avoided my gaze because they knew, everyone knew, except me, 3 days ago. Sarah, final check. Everyone's tickets confirmed? Jessica, are you really doing this, Sarah? Sarah, it's better this way. Trust me. Dad will pout for a week and then move on. Sophia, what if he doesn't, Sarah? Sarah, what's he going to do, cut me off? He's threatened that before and he never follows through. Jessica, maybe because he loves you? Sarah, maybe. Or maybe because he needs us more than we need him. I closed the messaging app and stared at the dark screen, watching my reflection look older than I remembered. They hadn't just excluded me. They had mocked me. My generosity wasn't appreciated. It was expected. My desire for family connection wasn't valued. It was tolerated. The phone vibrated with a new message from the group chat. Sarah, emergency. Dad went nuclear. He canceled everything and is threatening to call in the apartment loan. Jessica, wait. What? Sarah, he's serious this time. We may have really screwed up. I placed the phone back on the charging station and walked to my office, my steps echoing in the silent house. They thought they knew me. They thought I was predictable, manageable, someone who made empty threats and bought forgiveness with money. They were about to learn just how wrong they were. My office had always been my sanctuary. Mahogany desk, organized file cabinets, everything in its place. Now it felt like a war room. I pulled out my laptop and opened a new spreadsheet. The muscle memory from 30 years of running a construction business took over. Column headers, date, category, amount, documentation status, legal standing. I started with Sarah's education. Line by line, I entered every tuition payment, every dorm fee, every textbook purchase I had covered. $45,000 a year for 4 years. The laptop's calculator showed a total of $180,000. The wedding expenses came next. The venue Sarah had to have. The dress that cost more than most people's cars. The honeymoon to Bora Bora. Because we're only doing this once, Dad. Another $65,000. The apartment down payment made me pause. I had been smart there, structuring it as a formal loan with Robert's help. $85,000 with a promissory note, signed by both Sarah and Matt, below market interest rate, but legally binding. Vehicle purchases. Sarah's BMW, $45,000. Matt's truck, $35,000. I had co-signed both loans when their credit wasn't strong enough. Monthly support for the last 3 years averaged $2,500. Rent assistance, grocery money, insurance payments, emergency funds, another $90,000. The final total made me sit back in my chair. $515,000, $500,000 of documented generosity, repaid with calculated betrayal. I picked up my phone and dialed Robert's number. Julian, how are you holding up? I need an emergency meeting. Tonight, if possible. It's Christmas Day. Robert, I just calculated over $500,000 in family support over the last decade. I need to know exactly what legal options that creates. Silence. Then, I'll see you at my office at 5:30. Let me call David Cross. You'll want the tax implications reviewed as well. Driving downtown felt surreal. Christmas lights twinkled on empty streets as I drove to a meeting that would change everything. Robert's building was dark, except for his 20th floor office windows. He met me at the elevator, his usually impeccable suit replaced with jeans and a sweater. Julian, in 23 years of representing you, I have never seen you like this. In 23 years, I have never been systematically betrayed by the people I love most. David joined us via video call from his home office, his background showing a Christmas tree with scattered wrapping paper. Julian, Robert brought me up to speed. You're talking about a significant asset recovery here. I spread my documentation across Robert's conference table. Tell me what I can legally do. Robert reviewed the apartment loan documentation first. This is ironclad. You structured this perfectly. Demand loan, 30-day written notice. Below market interest, clearly documented as family assistance. Fully enforceable. The credit cards. You are the primary account holder. They are authorized users. You can remove them immediately. Any debt they've accrued on your cards becomes due on demand. David leaned forward on the screen. From a tax perspective, you've been treating the monthly support as gifts under the annual exclusion limit. Smart, but the major items. Education, wedding, apartment. Create legitimate debt instruments if the recipients abuse the trust. What about the car loans? You're the guarantor on both. If they miss payments, you can demand immediate payment or repossession through the lender. I felt a cold satisfaction settling in my chest. So they have no legal protection? Robert adjusted his glasses. Julian, they have no assets of their own, no independent income stream, and have become entirely financially dependent on your goodwill. From a legal standpoint, you hold all the cards. The emotional fraud aspect, harder to prove, but you have documented evidence of premeditated deception while accepting financial benefits. A court would look at that very unfavorably, David added. Plus, there's the doctrine of constructive trust. Money given under false pretenses can be clawed back, even if it was initially structured as gifts. Timeline for implementation. Robert pulled out his legal calendar. Credit cards can be canceled tonight. Apartment loan notice can be served tomorrow. They'll have 30 days from receipt. Car loans can be called in if they miss a single payment. And if they fight back, then we file suit for breach of trust, unjust enrichment, and fraudulent acceptance of benefits. With your documentation, it's not even a hard case. I gathered the documents, each paper representing not just money, but years of freely given and carefully betrayed. Our love. Prepare everything. All of it. Julian, once we start this process. They started it when they planned to abandon me while taking my money. I'm finishing it. Robert nodded slowly and opened his laptop. I'll have the preliminary documents ready by morning. Outside, the Christmas lights still twinkled, but they looked different now, like evidence markers at a crime scene. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app to begin the first phase. 4 days of preparation had transformed my home into a fortress of documentation. Legal papers organized in neat stacks. Financial records cross-referenced. Robert's draft agreements reviewed and ready. When Matt's truck pulled into my driveway at 6:30 p.m. on December 29th, I was watching from the living room window. They looked exactly as I expected. Clothes wrinkled, Sarah's eyes red from crying, Richard and Linda shuffling behind them like reluctant participants in someone else's drama. 4 days in a roadside motel had stripped them of their vacation confidence. I opened the door before they could knock. Julian. Matt's voice carried a forced authority, like a man trying to bluff his way out of quicksand. Come in. I stepped back. No warmth. No customary hug I would have offered before. To the living room. Sarah rushed toward me, tears already flowing. Daddy, I'm so sorry. We never meant for things to get this complicated. Sit down, Sarah. She froze at my tone. Even Matt looked taken aback by the ice in my voice. Richard cleared his throat nervously. Julian, son, maybe we should all just take a breath here. These family misunderstandings happen. This was not a misunderstanding. I remained standing as they settled uncomfortably on my furniture. It was a coordinated decision to exclude me while accepting my financial support. Sarah dabbed her eyes with a tissue. We just thought you might enjoy some quiet time at home. It was meant to be. Thoughtful. Thoughtful would have been asking. What you did was plan my exclusion while ensuring I paid for your vacation. Sarah's tears intensified. Daddy, please. It wasn't like that. We thought you'd appreciate having the house to yourself for once. Stop. The word cut through her manipulation like a blade. I've spent 4 days analyzing exactly what this family relationship has cost me financially. The numbers are illuminating. Matt leaned forward aggressively. What's that supposed to mean? I walked to my desk and picked up the folder Robert had prepared. It means I've reviewed every financial transaction between us for the last decade. $515,000 in documented support. The room went silent, except for a sharp intake of breath. Your education, Sarah. Your wedding. Your apartment down payment, which was legally structured as a loan, not a gift. Though, you seem to have forgotten that detail. Sarah's face went white. What do you mean? Loan? I mean, you and Matt signed promissory notes for $85,000 at below-market interest rates. Robert Morgan structured it properly to protect both parties. I opened the folder to show the documents. The loan is callable with 30 days written notice. You wouldn't. I already have. The notice was delivered via certified mail yesterday. Matt shot to his feet. This is insane! You can't destroy our lives over hurt feelings. I'm not destroying anything. I'm simply calling in legitimate debts. I move to the next section. Your credit cards are canceled as of January 1st. The car loan guarantees I provided are being reviewed for revocation. Dad, stop this. Sarah's voice cracked with real fear now. We'll lose everything. You should have considered that before you planned my exclusion. Richard stood up shakily. Julian, surely we can work something out. Families shouldn't handle disagreements like business transactions. You're right, Richard. Families should handle disagreements with honesty and respect. When you choose to handle family relationships like business transactions, taking money without offering any consideration in return, then I will respond in kind. Consideration? Matt's face flushed. We're your family. That should be enough. Family members don't conspire to abandon each other on Christmas morning. Linda was openly weeping now. We never meant to hurt you. We just thought. You thought I was a convenient source of funding with no feelings to consider. I closed the folder. You were wrong. Sarah collapsed onto the sofa, finally understanding the scope of their situation. How? How long do we have? 30 days from receipt of notice for the apartment. The credit cards are already canceled. The car payments become your sole responsibility immediately. We can't afford any of this without your help, she whispered. Then you should have thought of that before you decided my presence wasn't wanted. Matt paced to the window, his hands clenched into fists. This is blackmail. This is business. Something you should understand, given your eagerness to treat family relationships like financial transactions. Sarah looked at me, desperation replacing manipulation. What do you want? An apology? Groveling? What will fix this? I met her eyes, unflinching. You can't fix betrayal with apologies, Sarah. You can only live with the consequences. So that's it. Matt turned to face me. You're just going to destroy us financially because we took a vacation without you? I am going to treat you exactly as you treated me, like people whose feelings and needs do not matter. The room fell silent, except for the ticking of my grandfather clock. Finally, Matt squared his shoulders and looked at me directly. We need time to figure this out. You have exactly the time specified in the legal documents, not 1 day more, as they filed toward the door, defeated and desperate. I knew they wouldn't take this lying down. I slept better that night than I had in weeks. The morning brought the satisfaction of systematic implementation. My desk was organized with contact lists, legal timelines, and action points, arranged in order of priority. At 8 a.m. sharp, I made my first call. Robert, it's Julian. It's time to file the collection suit on the apartment loan. Are you sure about this? Once we file, there's no going back without looking weak. File it. $85,000, plus accrued interest and legal fees. Full collection action. I'll have it filed within the hour. And the credit cards? Calling the bank next. First National Bank answered on the second ring. Mr. Herrera, how can we help you today? I need to remove Sarah Herrera as an authorized user on all my accounts. Effective immediately. Of course, sir. May I ask the reason for the removal? Business decision, family financial restructuring. The cards will be canceled within 24 hours. Any outstanding charges will remain on your primary account. Understood. Chase Auto Finance took longer to reach the correct department. Mr. Herrera, calling about the guarantee removal on Matt Thompson's vehicle loan? Correct. I want my financial guarantee removed from his loan agreement. Sir, that will require him to qualify independently or find another guarantor. If he cannot, the loan becomes immediately due. That is his responsibility now. By 10 a.m., every legal action was in motion. The satisfaction felt clean, professional, unemotional, just consequences for documented betrayal. My doorbell rang at 10:30. Sarah stood on my porch, holding a manila envelope, tears already streaming. Daddy, my credit card was declined at the grocery store. The bank said you canceled my authorization. I removed you as an authorized user. The cards were mine, not yours. She pushed past me into the living room, opening the envelope to scatter family photos across my coffee table. Look at this. Remember when you taught me to ride my bike? My graduation. My wedding day when you walked me down the aisle. I remember paying for all of those occasions. How can you be so cold? I'm your daughter. Daughters don't conspire to abandon their fathers on Christmas morning. Matt appeared in my doorway, phone pressed to his ear. No, I understand. Yes, the guarantee has been removed. He hung up and glared at me. his fury barely contained. The bank wants my car loan paid in full, or they'll repossess it. I can't qualify for refinancing without your guarantee. Then you shouldn't have risked it by betraying my trust. Richard and Linda trailed in behind their son, looking uncomfortable. Julian, surely we can work something out, Richard said. These are just family disagreements. We've all said things. This isn't about things said. This is about things done. Premeditated financial fraud while accepting my generosity. Sarah's tears turned desperate. What do you want from us? Groveling? Public humiliation? Just tell me what will fix this. Nothing will fix the betrayal. You can only pay the legal consequences. Matt stepped closer, his voice lowering to something that sounded almost like a threat. You know, Julian, family relationships go both ways. You might want to consider what happens when you're all alone in this big house. Accidents happen to old people. I pulled out my phone and started recording. Could you repeat that, Matt? My lawyer will be interested in documented attempts at intimidation. His face flushed. I wasn't threatening. You were implying my age makes me vulnerable to accidents if I don't comply with your financial demands. That's textbook elder intimidation. Sarah grabbed Matt's arm. Stop talking, you're making it worse. Worse than being financially destroyed by your own family? I looked directly at Matt. I have security cameras recording this conversation. I have witnesses to your threatening behavior. Every word you've said is being documented for the legal proceedings. Linda started to weep. This isn't what families do to each other. Julian, you're destroying relationships that took decades to build. I didn't destroy them. I discovered they were already destroyed. You helped plan my exclusion while accepting my money. That destroyed the relationship. You thought I was a convenient ATM with no feelings to consider. Matt paced to the window, his fist clenching. Fine. You want to play hardball? It takes two to play that game. This isn't a game. It's debt collection. You owe $85,000 plus interest. The court will decide if you pay voluntarily or through. We'll see about that. Sarah gathered her photos with trembling hands. 30 days? 30 days from legal notification. The clock started ticking yesterday. As they reached my front door, Matt turned back, a cold calculation in his eyes. You know what your problem is, Julian? You think money makes you powerful, but power comes from having people who care about you, and you just threw that away. I watched them walk to their truck, noticing how Matt's hands shook as he started the engine. They still didn't get it. I hadn't thrown anything away. I had just stopped funding my own betrayal. New Year's Day brought the kind of quiet satisfaction I hadn't felt in years. The machinery was moving forward exactly as planned, and I spent the afternoon reading in my study, occasionally watching the snow fall outside my window. At 12 p.m., my phone rang. Julian. It's Margaret. My cousin's voice had an unusual tension. I need to talk to you about something. Concerning. Margaret and I had kept in steady contact since childhood, built on mutual respect and family history. If she sounded concerned, I paid attention. Of course, what's on your mind? I've received several calls today about you, from Sarah, Matt, even Richard and Linda. They're all saying similar things. And frankly, Julian, it doesn't sound like the man I've known for 40 years. I set my book aside and focused completely. What exactly are they saying? They're claiming you've become paranoid and distrustful since your retirement. Sarah was crying, saying you've turned on your own family over money. Matt insisted you're not thinking clearly and need an intervention. The sophistication of their strategy impressed me, despite my anger. And what's your assessment of these claims? That's why I'm calling. 3 family members contacting me within 2 hours, all with nearly identical talking points. That's not organic family concern, Julian. That's coordination. Margaret's marketing background made her naturally suspicious of orchestrated campaigns. They're trying to paint you as mentally declining, while positioning themselves as victims trying to help their troubled patriarch. What did they claim specifically? Sarah said you've become obsessed with money and are punishing her for wanting independence. Matt suggested you're showing signs of cognitive decline and making irrational financial decisions. Richard added that they're all worried about your judgment. Each false claim landed like a calculated blow. They were trying to undermine my credibility before I could damage theirs. Margaret, are you familiar with the actual sequence of events that led to this situation? Only what they've told me, which is why I'm asking for your side. I spent 15 minutes providing the factual timeline, the planned vacation, their abandonment on Christmas morning, the note, their coordinated exclusion while accepting my financial support. I kept the emotion out of it, presenting only documented facts. That is quite different from what they described. Margaret's voice carried a new understanding. They made it sound like you had suddenly become unreasonable about normal family independence. They conspired to abandon me on Christmas morning after I paid $17,000 for their vacation. When I implemented legal consequences for their documented loans and financial obligations, they escalated to intimidation, and now to reputation management. Julian, I'm going to ask you this directly. Are you experiencing any cognitive issues? Any changes in your judgment or decision-making? The question didn't offend me. It was exactly what a concerned relative should ask when presented with conflicting narratives. My lawyer, Robert Morgan, has worked with me on these legal actions. My accountant, David Cross, reviewed all financial documentation. Both professionals can attest to my mental acuity. The family simply doesn't want to face the legal consequences of their calculated betrayal. That tracks with the Julian I know. The man who successfully built and sold a construction company doesn't suddenly become paranoid over normal family dynamics. Margaret, I appreciate your call more than you know. How many other relatives have they contacted? I suspect they're systematically working their way through the family directory. Your brother Robert, your cousin Janet, probably your neighbors too. The scope of their campaign exceeded my initial assessment. They were attempting comprehensive reputation destruction to pressure me into backing down from the legal actions. Are you willing to help me document their false claims? Absolutely. What they're doing is defamation, and it's not going to work on the people who actually know you. After hanging up, I opened a new document on my laptop. If they wanted to wage a reputation war, I would respond with the same systematic approach I had used for their financial betrayal. The family had just escalated from threatening my safety to attacking my character. They were about to learn this was an even bigger mistake. The evening brought the satisfaction of documentation. I had spent the day creating a systematic response to their reputation campaign, timeline of events, professional references, character witnesses. Margaret had provided detailed accounts of their coordinated phone calls. At 7:30, I was reading in my living room when headlights swept across my window. Matt's truck pulled into my driveway with unnecessary aggression, tires crunching slightly on the pavement. Through the window, I watched him slam the door and stalk toward my house. His body language, that of someone who had run out of reasonable options. I activated my security system from the discrete panel by my chair. 6 cameras covering all approaches to the house, all recording automatically to cloud storage. 30 years of running a construction site had taught me the value of documenting confrontations. His pounding on my front door sounded more like demands than requests. "Open up, Julian, we need to talk." I opened the door but stood in the threshold, maintaining control of the space. "Good evening, Matt." Cut the polite crap. He brushed past me into the living room, his movements jerky with barely contained fury. "You think you can just destroy my family with your legal games? I think I can collect on legitimate debts through the proper legal channels." "Legal channels!" His voice rose to something like a shout. "You're ruining our lives over hurt feelings." "I am exercising contractual rights on documented loans." Matt stepped closer, using his height and his 40-year age advantage to loom over me. "You know what happens to stubborn old men who live alone in big houses like this?" I held his gaze, unflinching. "What happens, Matt?" "Accidents. Break-ins. Bad things happen when the neighbors can't hear you call for help." His voice dropped to something almost casual. "Your fancy alarm system won't help if you have a medical emergency, or if someone decides you need to be taught a lesson about family loyalty." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm explaining reality to someone who seems confused about his situation." He gestured around my living room. "You're 62 years old. You live alone. You have no family support anymore. Things could get very difficult. for you, if you don't stop this legal nonsense." I nodded thoughtfully, as if considering his words. That's an interesting perspective. Would you like to see something? Without waiting for an answer, I walked toward my office. Matt followed, likely thinking I'd been intimidated into compliance. "See, the great thing about living alone in a big house," I said, opening my office door, "is that you can afford proper security measures." The wall of monitors showed 6 different camera angles of my property, including perfect footage of Matt's arrival and our entire conversation. His face went white as he recognized himself on the screen, making threats to a senior citizen. You can't record me without permission. This is my private property. I can record anyone who enters it." I pointed to the timestamp, showing his threats from 3 minutes prior. It all uploads automatically to secure cloud storage. My lawyer, Robert Morgan, gets copies of all security recordings. Matt stared at the screens, his panic rising. "You have to delete this." "I don't have to do anything except provide evidence to the police when seniors are threatened in their own homes." "Delete it, Julian." I wasn't serious about what? Medical emergencies? Break-ins? Teaching me lessons about family loyalty? I picked up my phone. Threatening a senior is a serious offense in our state, especially with documented evidence. You can't call the police over a conversation. I can call them for criminal intimidation and making threats against a senior citizen. I dialed 911, which carries enhanced penalties under our state's elder protection laws. 911. What is your emergency? This is Julian Herrera at 847 Maple Ridge Drive. I need a police response for criminal threats being made against me by a family member. I am 62 years old, and the suspect is still in my home, making threats about accidents and break-ins. Matt's face went from anger to pure panic. "Hang up. I'll leave right now." "Sir, are you in immediate danger?" the operator asked. "The suspect is agitated, but I have him on security camera. I have video evidence of the threats. Officers have been dispatched. Please stay on the line." 2 patrol cars arrived in 8 minutes. I provided the officers with printed screenshots of Matt making threats, along with the audio recording. Our state's enhanced penalties for crimes against seniors made this a priority. "Mr. Thompson, you're under arrest for criminal intimidation and threatening a senior," the lead officer announced, pulling out handcuffs. Matt's hands shook as they cuffed him. "This is insane! He's my wife's father!" "That makes it worse, sir. Family relationship doesn't excuse threatening behavior." As they led him to the patrol car, Matt looked back at me, something like desperation in his eyes. "You don't know what you're doing, Julian. This won't end the way you think." I watched the taillights disappear down my street, and then I called Robert Morgan to update him on our newest legal development. The court documents arrived on a snowy Tuesday morning, delivered by Robert Morgan with the satisfaction of a man who had orchestrated a perfect legal victory. I spread them across my dining room table, like a general reviewing successful battle plans. "Full judgment in your favor," Robert announced, setting his briefcase beside the papers. $85,000 recovered through the sale of the apartment. All credit obligations transferred back to the primary borrowers. Criminal charges proceeding separately. The numbers were more satisfying than I had anticipated. Not just the money, though recovering every cent felt appropriate, but the systematic nature of justice served through proper legal channels. Matt's employment situation, a criminal record for threatening a senior, makes him essentially unemployable in any professional capacity. Most employers run background checks now. I reviewed the property sale documents. Their apartment had sold in 1 week to cash buyers. The housing market didn't care about family drama, only market values and clear titles. Vehicle repossession was completed yesterday, Robert continued. The bank acted quickly once the guarantee removal was processed. They're on public transit now. Through my network of neighbors and acquaintances, I learned the family was crammed into Richard and Linda's 1-bedroom apartment, 5 adults sharing a space designed for 2, with Sarah working retail for the first time since college, and Matt unable to find employment. At noon, I watched them walk up my driveway. All 5 of them moved differently now, shoulders slumped, eyes downcast. The body language of people who had learned the cost of betrayal. Sarah led the group, her face already red from crying before she even reached my door. I let them in without the formality of them asking. "Dad!" Sarah's voice broke immediately. We need to talk." They settled in my living room like supplicants before a judge. Richard and Linda looked exhausted, aged beyond their years by the stress and cramped living conditions. Matt couldn't meet my eyes. "I'm listening." "We were wrong." Sarah's words came out in a desperate rush, completely, totally wrong. About everything. The vacation, leaving you behind. The way we treated your generosity. All of it. Matt forced himself to look at me. "I made terrible mistakes, Julian. The threats, the things I said. I was scared and stupid, and I hurt you when you had only ever helped us." Richard cleared his throat nervously. "Julian, son, we're too old to be supporting everyone. Linda and I. We can't. Our pension wasn't meant for 5 people. We're still family," Linda added quietly. Despite everything that's happened, we're still family." I studied their faces, looking for signs of the same calculation I had seen before. But desperation had stripped away the pretense. These were people who had learned the difference between genuine remorse and strategic manipulation. "Tell me about the planning," I said. Sarah flinched. "What planning?" "The Christmas vacation conspiracy. How long did you discuss excluding me? Who suggested it first? When did you decide to coordinate leaving me behind?" The question hung in the air like an accusation. Sarah looked at Matt, who looked at his parents, who looked back at Sarah. "It wasn't," Sarah began, and then stopped. Matt mentioned it first. Maybe 3 weeks before Christmas. He said it. It might be more relaxing without you there. And you agreed?" "I did." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "I agreed. Because I wanted a vacation where I didn't have to be grateful all the time. Where I could just exist without feeling like I owed someone everything. The honesty was more devastating than any lie could have been." "Richard. Linda. Your involvement?" Richard's hands trembled slightly. We knew it was wrong when we agreed, but Matt convinced us you'd understand. Eventually. That you'd prefer the quiet time alone. So, you coordinated to leave me alone on Christmas morning after I paid $17,000 for your vacation?" "Yes." Sarah's admission came out like a confession. "We planned it, we discussed it, we knew exactly what we were doing, and we did it anyway." I sat back in my chair, processing their complete capitulation. No excuses, no justifications, no attempts to minimize their choices. "What do you want from me?" "Now." "Forgiveness," Sarah whispered. "A chance to fix it," Matt added. "Help," Richard said simply. I looked at each of them. My daughter, who had inherited my business sense but not my integrity. My son-in-law, who had learned the cost of threatening those who had supported him. The elderly couple, who had chosen convenience over character. "If I were to consider any future relationship," I said slowly, "it would require conditions." Hope flickered in their eyes like candle flames in the wind. "Complete honesty about your motivations and planning. No more coordinating behind my back. A recognition that trust, once broken, must be rebuilt through consistent actions, over time." They nodded eagerly, desperately. "But first," I continued, "you need to understand exactly how much your betrayal cost. Not just financially, but personally." I walked to my office and returned with Sarah's phone. The following afternoon brought another performance, though this one was more polished than their previous attempts. I watched through my living room window as they approached my front door. Sarah holding a bouquet of expensive white lilies, the flowers I had brought to her mother's funeral 15 years ago. They had prepared more carefully this time. Sarah's tears began before she even knocked, timed perfectly for maximum emotional impact. Matt positioned himself slightly behind her in practiced humility, head bowed at the precise angle. I opened the door to find Sarah's carefully crafted breakdown already in progress. "Daddy," she thrust the flowers at me. I I love you so much, and I'm so, so sorry for everything we did to you." The others filed in behind her like a choreographed funeral procession. Matt's apology came right on cue. "Julian, I've spent every night thinking about what I said to you, what I threatened. I've learned my lesson about respecting the man who gave us everything. I I get it now." Richard and Linda provided the perfect elderly backdrop, their genuine distress mixed with a practiced support for their children's performance. We just want our family back together," Linda whispered. "Life is too short for all this. Anger and separation." Sarah collapsed onto my sofa. A calculated vulnerability. "I know we hurt you terribly, but I promise, I swear, I will be the daughter you deserve. I will fix everything." As she spoke, I noticed her phone positioned carefully against the cushion, the screen angled toward our conversation. The small red record dot was barely visible, but it was there. "Tell me more about fixing things," I said, settling into my chair at a strategic distance. I understand now that taking your generosity for granted was wrong," Sarah continued, her voice in the practiced cadence of rehearsed sincerity. "I see how much you sacrificed for us, how much you gave, and I want to earn your love back." Matt glanced at his watch, a quick, almost unconscious gesture that contradicted his claims that this was the most important moment of his life. I'm ready to prove my gratitude every single day," he added, checking it again now as he spoke of eternal appreciation. The disconnect between their words and their behavior created a fascinating study in deception. Sarah's tears seemed genuine, but the strategic placement of her phone revealed calculation. Matt's apologies sounded memorized, delivered between obvious time checks that suggested he needed to be somewhere else. "Richard, Linda, what are your thoughts on rebuilding family trust?" I asked. "We believe in forgiveness," Richard answered carefully. "People make mistakes, but families should find ways to move forward together. Even when those mistakes involve systematic planning and coordination, the question hung in the air like an accusation." Sarah adjusted her phone's position, subtle, but noticeable, if you were watching for deceptive behavior. "We all regret the planning aspect," Matt said, checking his watch again. "It was wrong to coordinate, to exclude you. We understand that now." "Do you really?" I looked directly at Sarah. "What exactly do you understand about coordination and planning?" Her carefully prepared composure faltered, just for a moment. I understand that. We made decisions as a group that hurt you individually, and that was selfish and cruel." The answer was too polished, too therapy speak, like something rehearsed by someone who had researched family reconciliation tactics online. "Sarah, you seem distracted by something on your phone." She stiffened. My phone? No, I'm completely focused on you, Dad. On us. On fixing this." But her eyes had darted to the device involuntarily, confirming what I had already observed. "You were recording our conversation, likely planning to use selective clips for social media sympathy or for legal documentation. Matt, you keep checking your watch. Do you have somewhere more important to be?" His face flushed. "No, this is the most important thing in my life right time. It's a nervous habit." The lies piled on lies with increasing transparency. 40 years of business negotiations had taught me how to read people's true priorities behind their stated intentions. These people were performing regret, not feeling it. "I appreciate you all coming," I said, standing up to signal the end of the conversation. "It's been very educational." Sarah's panic was immediate and visible. "Educational? Dad, what do you mean? We're trying to apologize, to fix things." "You're trying to manipulate me with a performance while secretly recording our conversation for your own purposes. The accusation landed like a physical blow. Sarah's hand instinctively moved toward her phone, confirming my observation. I wasn't. I would never. You positioned your phone to record this conversation from the moment you sat down. Matt checked his watch 6 times during his speech about how this moment means everything to him. Your apologies sound rehearsed, because they are rehearsed. Matt's defensive anger flared immediately. You're being paranoid. We came here genuinely. You came here with another manipulation strategy, because the last one failed. The room fell silent, except for Linda's quiet weeping. I had hoped, I continued, that losing everything might teach you the difference between genuine remorse and strategic performance. Apparently, it has not. Sarah tried one last, desperate appeal. Please, Dad, we need you. We have nothing left. You have exactly what you chose, when you decided to betray my trust while pretending to value it. I walked to the front door, opening it deliberately. But before you go, I said, walking back to my chair, there's one more thing you need to understand about what you lost. I picked up her phone from my office and unlocked it with her birth date. 3 weeks passed, like the turning of legal documents, methodical, final, irreversible. I spent those days completing what they had started with their betrayal, the systematic severing of all connections between us. Robert Morgan delivered the final paperwork on a crisp February morning. Property transfers completed, he announced, setting down the thick folder. $85,000 recovered and deposited. All credit guarantees revoked and processed. Legally speaking, you have zero financial obligation to any of them. Estate planning, updated as per your instructions. Primary beneficiaries are now Margaret and the City Children's Hospital. Family members, specifically excluded, with reasons documented. The legal integrity felt satisfying in a way emotional victories never could. Each document represented a choice they had made and a consequence they had earned. Through Margaret's updates, I learned they had moved to a small town near an industrial city where Richard's brother owned a trailer park, 5 adults, sharing a single-wide mobile home. Sarah, working 2 retail jobs. Matt's criminal record, barring him from steady employment. Natural consequences, flowing from natural choices. The letter arrived on February 1st. Sarah's handwriting had always been careful, but desperation made it shaky now. The envelope was thin, cheap stationery, no return address. I opened it at my kitchen table, over coffee I had purchased without considering anyone else's preferences. Dad, I know you probably don't want to hear from us, but I have to try. We're living at Uncle Carl's trailer park now. Me, Matt, Richard, Linda, and Carl's family, sharing a single wide. The kids sleep on air mattresses in the living room. I'm working at a grocery store and a gas station, just to help with food. Matt can't find anything stable because of his record. Richard's blood pressure medication costs more than we can afford, and Linda's arthritis is getting worse from the stress. I'm not asking for much, just enough to get a small apartment, so the older folks can have some dignity. Maybe $500 a month? I know I messed up. Everything. But we're family. Please, Dad. We've learned our lesson. Love. Sarah. I read it twice, looking for signs of the manipulation I had come to expect. But desperation had stripped away the calculated appeals, leaving only raw need, and the same fundamental misunderstanding that had started it all. She still thought this was about punishment instead of consequences. She still believed family obligation superseded personal responsibility. She still assumed my resources existed to solve problems created by their choices. I folded the letter and filed it with the other legal documents. No response was necessary. After decades of supporting ungrateful dependents, silence felt appropriate. That afternoon, I called Margaret. "How are you adjusting to your newfound freedom?" she asked. "Better than expected. I'm planning a dinner at that new Italian place downtown next week. Would you care to join me?" "I'd love to. It's been too long since you socialized without worrying about family drama. Too long." After hanging up, I made other calls. My old business partner, David, wanted to discuss investment opportunities. My neighbor, Robert had mentioned a community theater group. There were hiking clubs, book discussions, travel groups, entire worlds I had neglected while funding other people's dreams. The phone number for the senior singles group was on my desk. At 62, dating felt simultaneously terrifying and liberating. But meeting someone who valued conversation over credit cards, companionship over financial support, seemed like something worth exploring. I walked through my house that evening, seeing the spaces differently. The dining room where they had plotted my exclusion could host dinner parties for people who actually enjoyed my company. The guest rooms could welcome visitors who came for the relationship, not the resources. Justice hadn't required dramatic confrontations or elaborate revenge schemes. It had simply required stopping the flow of unearned benefits to people who had mistaken generosity for obligation. They had taught me a valuable lesson about the difference between family by blood and family by choice. Some people proved themselves worthy of trust and support through their actions. Others proved themselves unworthy through theirs. My calendar for the next month was filling up with possibilities. Theater tickets with Margaret, investment meetings with David, hiking trails with the outdoor club, activities chosen for my own interests, rather than other people's expectations. The house felt lighter somehow, as if removing the toxic relationships had improved the actual air quality. For the first time in years, I was planning a future based on my own hopes instead of other people's needs. At 62, I was finally free to discover what genuine relationships look like when they're built on mutual respect, instead of financial dependency. The adventure was just beginning. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to William's Revenge Stories, and share your thoughts on this story in the comments. To hear the next story, click the box on the left. Thanks for listening.